story begins. Emma Hartley found the negatives by accident. She was repairing the spine of a 1973 East German novel when the envelope fell out. Thin, yellowed, tucked between the cloth binding and the cardboard backing where no one would look unless they were taking the book apart completely. Emma ran a rare bookshop in Brooklyn. 3 floors, narrow staircases, shelves packed so tight you had to turn sideways to walk between them. The shop smelled like old paper and binding glue, and the specific mustiness of books that had crossed oceans and decades to end up in her hands. She was 34 years old, never married, lived in the apartment above the shop. Her life revolved around the intersection of preservation and history. Every book told a story, but sometimes books carried other stories hidden inside them. The envelope was unmarked. Emma opened it carefully. Inside, 12 strips of 35mm film negative, black and white, perfectly preserved despite being tucked in a book for who knows how long. She held the first strip up to the light from her workbench lamp, saw reversed images, dark where light should be, light where darkness lived, shadows and shapes that suggested buildings, walls, people. Emma pulled her loupe from the drawer, examined the negatives more closely. The images were sharp, professional quality, taken with skill and intention. One frame showed a wall, tall, concrete, graffiti covered. She recognized it immediately. The Berlin Wall. Emma's pulse quickened. She looked at the other negatives, more images of the wall, different angles, different sections, some showing guard towers, some showing the death strip between the inner and outer barriers. But other frames showed different things: tunnel entrances, underground passages, people moving through darkness, maps scratched into dirt walls, coded symbols painted on bricks. These weren't tourist photographs. These were documentation, evidence, proof of something that happened in secret. Emma checked the envelope again, found something she'd missed. A small notation in pencil on the inside flap. KM 1980-1985, Neiman's Land. KM initials, 1980 to 1985. 5 years. Neiman's Land. German for no man's land. The death strip. Emma looked at the book the negatives had been hidden in. Die Mauer. The Wall. Published East Berlin, 1973. A propaganda novel about the necessity of the border. Required reading in East German schools. Someone had hollowed out this propaganda and filled it with truth. But who was KM? And what had they documented? Emma made a decision that would change everything. She called her friend David, photography collector, specialized in Cold War-era images. If anyone could help her understand what these negatives meant, it was him. David arrived an hour later, looked at the negatives, went pale. "Where did you get these?" "Estate auction. Box of German books. This one had them hidden inside." David held a negative strip up to the light, studied it with the intensity of someone seeing something impossible. "Do you know what this is?" "Berlin Wall. Tunnels. I can see that much." "Not just tunnels. Escape tunnels. These are photographs of active escape routes, the kind that got people killed if discovered." Emma felt cold. "When were they taken?" "Can't tell from negatives, but based on the wall sections visible, I'd say early to mid-1980s. The graffiti patterns match that period." "The envelope says 1980 to 1985. David set down the negative. "We need to develop these, see what we're really looking at." 3 days later, Emma stood in David's darkroom watching images emerge in developer fluid. The chemical smell was sharp. The red safe light cast everything in crimson. And as each print materialized, the story became clearer. 12 negatives. 12 images. Image 1. The Berlin Wall from the east side. Watchtower visible. Guard silhouette. Image 2. Close-up of a section of wall. A small mark painted near the base. Arrow pointing left. Image 3. Underground tunnel entrance. Rough-cut opening. Ladder descending into darkness. Image 4. Inside the tunnel. Dirt walls. Wooden support beams. Electric wire running along the ceiling. Image 5. People in the tunnel. 3 figures, faces blurred by motion, carrying bags, moving away from camera. Image 6. Exit point. Metal grate. Moonlight visible through the openings. Image 7. West Berlin Street. Different architecture. Different graffiti. Freedom side. Image 8. Another tunnel entrance. Different location. Different construction method. Image 9. Map scratched into tunnel wall. Lines showing routes. X marks for danger points. Image 10. Close-up of hands. Someone's hands working, digging, building. Image 11. Group photo. 5 people standing in a basement. Faces partially visible. Tools scattered around them. Proud, exhausted. Image 12. A woman's reflection in a mirror. Holding a camera. Mid-30s. Dark hair. Sharp eyes. The photographer herself. Emma stared at image 12. The woman who took these photographs had documented herself, left one piece of evidence that she existed. Who was she? David pointed at the group photo. These people built the tunnels. Look at their hands. Look at their clothes. They're covered in dirt. This was taken after a dig. How many tunnels are shown here? David counted. At least 3 different locations based on the construction differences, maybe more. And the people? The ones escaping? Hard to say. But if these tunnels were active from 1980 to 1985, and multiple people used each one, he trailed off. Could be dozens. Maybe more than 100. Emma felt the weight of what they'd found. We need to identify KM. How? The book was East German. The photographs were taken from the east side. Whoever KM was, they had access to both sides of the wall. Which means they were either a border guard, a government official, or someone pretending to be one. Emma spent the next 2 weeks researching. She contacted Cold War historians, Berlin Wall museums, East German archive specialists, sent them the images, asked if anyone recognized the locations or could identify KM. Most responses were dead ends, but one email changed everything. From a researcher at the Stasi Records Archive in Berlin. The initials KM and the dates 1980 to 1985 match a file we have. Katarina Müller, photographer. Official designation, Cultural Documentation Division. Unofficial designation, suspected Western spy. Status, executed December 1985 for espionage. File sealed, restricted access. Emma read it 3 times. Executed. Katarina Müller was dead, but the photographs existed, which meant she'd hidden them before her execution, left them as evidence, as proof. Emma replied asking for more information. The researcher sent a scanned file summary. Katarina Müller, born 1952, East Berlin. Official photographer for state publications. Arrested November 1985 on charges of espionage and aiding illegal border crossings. Executed by firing squad, December 7, 1985. Body, undisclosed burial. Evidence destroyed. Case closed. Emma's hands shook as she read. But something didn't add up. She pulled out the negatives again, examined them under magnification, found what she was looking for on the edge of frame 11. A calendar on the wall behind the group photo. Small, barely visible, but readable under magnification. March 1986. Katarina Müller was supposedly executed December 1985, but she was photographing escape tunnels in March 1986, 3 months after her death. What Emma discovered next changed everything. She flew to Berlin, met with the Stasi archive researcher in person. His name was Thomas Weber, mid-60s, former East German citizen who dedicated his retirement to documenting the crimes of the regime he'd lived under. They met in a cafe near the Brandenburg Gate. Emma brought the photographs. Thomas examined them carefully. His hands trembled slightly. "Where did you say you found these?" "Hidden in a 1973 East German novel. Estate sale in New York." "And you're certain about the date on the calendar?" "March 1986, 3 months after her supposed execution." Thomas set down the photograph, looked at Emma with an expression that mixed sadness and something like vindication. Katarina Müller wasn't executed. She was extracted. What? The execution was staged, a deal between Stasi and Western intelligence. Katarina had become too valuable to kill and too dangerous to keep. "I don't understand." Thomas pulled out a folder. Inside, more documents, more photographs, evidence he'd been collecting for years. Katarina Müller was recruited by West German intelligence in 1979. She was a photographer, had access to state buildings, border zones, official events. Perfect cover. She was a spy. She was more than that. She became involved with the escape network, tunnel builders, people helping families cross to the West. She documented their work, created visual records of routes and methods. Why? Because the Stasi was closing in. Multiple escape attempts were being discovered and shut down. People were being arrested, killed. The network needed to know which routes were compromised, which were still safe. Thomas showed Emma more photographs, different images, different tunnels, all taken by Katarina. She would photograph active routes, develop the negatives in a makeshift darkroom, pass them to the network leaders. They'd use the images to coordinate escapes and avoid discovered tunnels. For how long? 5 years, 1980 to 1985. In that time, the network successfully moved over 120 people to the West. Emma's breath caught. 120? Confirmed. Maybe more. Records are incomplete. And then? In November 1985, Stasi arrested her. They knew she was involved. They didn't know the full extent. West German intelligence negotiated, offered a trade. Katarina's execution would be staged. She'd be extracted to the West. In exchange, the network would be shut down. No more escapes, no more tunnels. And she agreed? She didn't have a choice. The alternative was real execution. But she made one condition. What? She got to keep photographing until the extraction. Documented everything. Every tunnel, every escape, every person. Left the negatives hidden in places she knew would eventually be discovered. Thomas touched the photographs Emma had brought. These are part of that archive. She hid them all over East Berlin. In books, in buildings, in walls. Scattered evidence so even if the Stasi found some, they wouldn't find all of it. Why? Because she knew someday people would ask, would question, would want proof that the escapes happened, that the network existed. That 120 people risked everything for freedom and succeeded. Emma felt tears forming. Where is she now? Thomas smiled, sad, tired. I don't know. The extraction was secret. She was given a new identity, new life. Could be anywhere. But you know she's alive. I know the execution was staged. I know Western intelligence extracted her. Beyond that, he shrugged. She became a ghost, which is exactly what she needed to be. But Emma couldn't let it go. Over the next 3 months, she became obsessed. She contacted everyone Thomas had mentioned, found 17 more sets of hidden negatives, different locations, same photographer, same time period. Each set documented different tunnels, different escapes, different faces. Emma had them all developed, cataloged, organized chronologically. The full scope became clear. Katarina Müller had documented an entire underground railroad, 37 separate escape attempts, 123 people successfully crossing, dozens of volunteers building tunnels, hundreds of hours of dangerous work, all captured on film, all hidden, all waiting to be found. Emma created an exhibition, The Negatives She Left Behind, Katarina Müller and the Berlin Escape Network. It opened at a small gallery in Berlin. 200 photographs, timeline reconstructed, testimonies from survivors who had used the tunnels. The opening night was quiet. Maybe 50 people, mostly academics, historians, Cold War researchers. Emma stood near the entrance, watching people examine the photographs, seeing them understand. Then an elderly woman entered, late 70s, gray hair, carrying a worn leather bag. She walked slowly through the exhibition, stopped at each photograph, studied them with intensity that felt personal. She reached the final image, the reflection, the photographer's self-portrait, and she smiled. Emma approached carefully. "Can I help you?" The woman turned. Her eyes were the same eyes from the photograph, older but unmistakable. "You found them." Emma's voice failed. She managed one word. "Katarina?" "Not anymore. I'm Anna now. Anna Bergen, Norwegian citizen, retired teacher. Been living in Oslo since 1986. Emma couldn't speak, couldn't move. Anna looked back at the photographs. "I never knew if anyone would find them. I scattered them, left them in places I thought might survive, hoped someone would care enough to look. You saved 123 people. We saved them, the network, the builders, the families who helped. I just took pictures. You documented it. You made sure their stories wouldn't disappear." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "The Stasi tried to erase everything, destroy all evidence, make it like the tunnels never existed, like the people who escaped never existed. I couldn't let that happen." Emma took her hand. "You didn't. It's all here. Every tunnel, every face, every moment of courage, preserved." They stood together looking at the photographs. Evidence of resistance, proof of hope, documentation of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Anna spoke quietly. "There's something I need to tell you. Something not in any archive." "What?" "The network didn't stop in 1985. The extraction was real. I did leave East Berlin. But some of the builders stayed, kept working. After I left, they continued for 4 more years, until the wall fell in 1989. How many more people? I don't know exactly. No one was photographing anymore. No records. But I stayed in contact. Secret letters, code words. They told me. Maybe another 80. Maybe more. Emma did the math. 200 people total? At least. Across 9 years. 37 documented tunnels. Who knows how many undocumented? And you're the only one who knows. I was. Now you know too. But Anna wasn't finished. She opened her leather bag, pulled out a small metal tin, opened it carefully. Inside, more negatives, dozens of them, carefully preserved. These are the ones I kept, the ones I couldn't hide. Too dangerous, too identifying. Photos of the builders, the organizers, the families on both sides who helped. She handed the tin to Emma. I've carried these for 38 years. Moved them from East Berlin to Oslo. Kept them safe. But I'm 78 now. I won't live forever. Someone needs to preserve them. Emma took the tin with shaking hands. Why me? Because you found the others. Because you cared enough to search. Because you're building the archive I always wanted to build, but couldn't. Over the next year, Emma worked with Anna to develop and catalog the additional negatives. 147 more images. Faces became clear. Names were remembered. Anna identified everyone she could, told their stories. The exhibition expanded from 200 photographs to 347, from a small gallery to the Berlin Wall Museum permanent collection. Emma and Anna worked together, built the comprehensive documentation of the escape network, tracked down survivors, found families of the builders. 43 people who had used the tunnels were still alive. Emma contacted all of them, invited them to Berlin for a reunion. The event was held in November 2024, 39 years after Katarina's supposed execution, 38 years after her extraction. 43 survivors gathered, ages ranging from 50 to 93. People who had been children when they crawled through tunnels. People who had been young adults fleeing persecution. People who had been parents carrying babies through darkness toward freedom. Anna stood among them, no longer hiding, no longer a ghost. One by one, they told their stories. A woman in her 60s. I was 12. My parents used Tunnel 7. November 1982. Your photograph showed us which exit was safe. We made it because of you. A man in his 70s. I was a builder. Tunnel 12. You photographed our work in June 1984. I never saw those photos until today. Didn't know you'd documented us. Thank you for remembering. An elderly woman. My family was part of the group photo. Image 11, March 1986. I'm the one on the left. My daughter is the small figure in front. She's 50 now, lives in Hamburg, has 3 children of her own. They exist because you took that photograph, because you proved we existed. Anna cried. Emma held her hand. The weight of 38 years of secrecy breaking. At the end of the evening, Anna addressed the group. I took those photographs because I was afraid. Afraid the Stasi would erase everything. Afraid your courage would be forgotten. Afraid the tunnels would collapse and no one would remember they existed. I wanted proof, evidence, truth. She looked at the photographs on the walls around them, but I realized now I was wrong. The truth wasn't in the photographs. It was in you. You are the proof. You survived. You built lives. You raised families. You became teachers and doctors and artists and builders. You became the evidence that freedom matters, that risk is worthwhile, that ordinary people can save each other. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping, slow, deliberate. Others joined. Within seconds, all 43 survivors were standing, applauding, not for themselves, for Anna, for the photographer who risked everything to document their courage. Anna stood, smiled through tears, and for the first time in 38 years, stopped being Anna Bergen and allowed herself to be Katarina Müller again. The exhibition became permanent. The Berlin Escape Network, 1980 to 1989, opened as a dedicated wing in the Berlin Wall Museum in March 2025. 347 photographs, 123 documented escapes, at least 80 more undocumented, 37 tunnels mapped and verified, 43 living survivors, dozens of builders and helpers identified, and in the center of the exhibition, a photograph of Anna Katarina. Not the reflection from 1986, a new portrait taken by Emma, showing Katarina at 78, holding her camera, the same Leica she'd used in the 1980s, still working, still documenting. The placard beneath read, Katarina Müller, 1952 present, photographer and documentarian, captured proof of the Berlin Escape Network, 1980 to 1985. Officially executed December 1985, actually extracted by Western intelligence. Continued documenting resistance until the fall of the Berlin Wall. Her photographs preserved the stories of at least 200 people who risked everything for freedom. She hid her negatives in books, buildings, and walls across East Berlin, ensuring the truth would survive. She is still alive. Her work continues. Emma stood in the museum on opening day, watched hundreds of people flow through the exhibition, saw them stop at each photograph, read each story, understand. Anna stood beside her, quiet, reflective. "Do you regret any of it?" Emma asked. "The risk, the hiding, the 38 years as someone else?" Anna smiled. "I regret the people we couldn't save, the tunnels that were discovered, the families that were separated. But photographing them, hiding the evidence, never. Even though it meant you had to disappear. Disappearing meant I got to live, and living meant I got to see this." She gestured at the exhibition, at the people, at the photographs on the walls. "I got to see the truth survive. That's worth any sacrifice." 2 months after the exhibition opened, Emma received a package at her bookshop, postmarked from Berlin. No return address. Inside, a book. Die Mauer, The Wall. 1973 East German edition. Different from the one Emma had found the first negatives in, but identical in every other way. And tucked inside the spine, an envelope with negatives. Emma's hands shook as she opened it. 12 more strips. 12 more images she'd never seen. Different tunnels, different faces, different moments of courage frozen in silver halide and time. And a note, handwritten in German. "There are more. Keep looking. Keep preserving. Keep telling the truth. The negatives I left behind are still out there, waiting for people who care enough to find them. K.M." Emma called Anna immediately. "How many more?" Anna's voice carried a smile. "I lost count. Maybe 50, maybe 100. I hid them everywhere. Libraries, museums, private collections, scattered across Europe. Some probably destroyed, but some are still waiting." Why didn't you tell me? Because finding them matters. The search matters. People need to discover the truth themselves, not have it handed to them. Emma looked at the new negatives. I'll find them all. I know you will. Over the next 3 years, Emma became a detective. She tracked down every East German book published in the 1970s and 1980s, examined them for hidden envelopes, found 17 more sets of negatives. Each discovery expanded the archive. Each new photograph added another piece of the story. Some images were duplicates, backups Katarina had created in case the originals were destroyed. But others were new, showed tunnels Emma hadn't known existed, escapes that had never been documented. The confirmed number grew. 123 became 147, then 162, then 191. Each number represented a life, a person who walked through darkness toward freedom, a family reunited, a story that survived. Emma presented each new discovery to Anna. They'd meet in Oslo twice a year, go through the photographs together. Anna would remember, identify, tell stories. This one, Tunnel 23, April 1983. A family with 3 children. The youngest was 6 months old. They carried her in a basket, made it through in 47 minutes. This one, Tunnel 31, October 1984. A young couple, engaged, couldn't marry under the regime, escaped together. Last I heard, they're still together, living in Frankfurt. This one, Tunnel 19, December 1982. My hands. I took that photograph of my own hands after we finished digging. They were bleeding, covered in dirt. But I wanted to remember, wanted proof that I'd physically helped, not just documented. Each story added weight. Each memory confirmed truth. But not every story had a happy ending. Some photographs showed tunnels that were discovered before anyone could escape. Some showed builders who were arrested. Some showed families who tried but were caught and sent back. Anna identified those too, with the same precision, the same respect. This one, Tunnel 14, June 1983. Discovered by Stasi the night before the escape attempt. 3 builders arrested. I never saw them again. This one, Tunnel 27, February 1985. Family of 4. Made it halfway through. Tunnel collapsed. Mother and daughter died. Father and son survived. I photographed the funeral from a distance. Wanted to remember the cost. Emma preserved those images too. Not just the successes, the failures, the losses, the whole truth. Because history isn't just about triumph. It's about sacrifice, risk. The people who tried and failed, but whose courage mattered just as much as those who succeeded. By 2028, Emma had found 89 sets of hidden negatives, over 1,000 individual photographs, documented proof of 41 different tunnels, 217 confirmed escapes. The Berlin Wall Museum dedicated an entire building to the archive, the Katarina Müller collection. Every photograph preserved, every story told, every person remembered. Anna attended the dedication ceremony. 82 years old, still sharp, still clear. She stood in front of a wall displaying all 1,000 photographs, looked at her life's work preserved for history. I never imagined this, she said quietly. When I was hiding negatives in book spines and building walls, I thought maybe someday someone would find a few, understand a little. But this... Emma stood beside her. You documented 217 people escaping, 41 tunnels, 9 years of resistance. That deserves to be remembered completely. It wasn't just me. It was everyone. The builders, the families, the helpers on both sides. I just took pictures. You preserved the truth. In a time when truth was illegal, when memory was dangerous, you made sure the evidence survived. Anna touched the wall, ran her fingers across the photographs. Her photographs. Do you know what I'm most proud of? What? Not the escapes, not the tunnels, not even the photographs. Then what? Anna turned to face Emma. That you found them, that you cared. That a woman in Brooklyn who never knew me and never lived through the wall looked at 12 negatives and decided they mattered. That's what I'm proud of. That the truth found someone who would protect it. Emma felt tears forming. The truth found you first. No, the truth chose me because I had a camera. But the truth chose you because you have a heart. That's more important. They stood together, surrounded by 1,000 photographs, each one proof that courage existed, that resistance happened, that ordinary people saved each other when governments failed them. And in that moment, Emma understood. The negatives Katarina left behind weren't just evidence. They were trust. Trust that someone would find them. Someone would care. Someone would tell the truth even when telling it was inconvenient or uncomfortable or politically complicated. Katarina had trusted the future to be better than the past, and Emma had proven her right. 5 years later, Emma received a call from a lawyer in Oslo. Anna Bergen, formerly Katarina Müller, had died peacefully in her sleep, 87 years old, surrounded by photographs, at peace. Her will left everything to Emma, her apartment, her belongings, her cameras, and one final envelope. Emma flew to Oslo for the funeral. 43 survivors attended, people who owed their lives to tunnels Anna had documented, children and grandchildren of builders Anna had photographed. They told stories, shared memories, celebrated a life that had been lived twice. Once as Katarina, once as Anna. Both versions committed to the same truth, that freedom matters and courage should be remembered. After the service, Emma opened the final envelope. Inside, a letter and negatives, the last ones. The letter was dated 3 weeks before Anna's death. Dear Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone, which means it's time for you to know the complete truth. The negatives I hid across Europe were real. Everyone documented actual escapes in tunnels, but they weren't all of them. I kept some back, the most dangerous ones, the ones that showed people who are still alive, people who could still be prosecuted, people whose families could still be hurt. I never developed these, never showed anyone, kept them locked away for 40 years. But now I'm dying, and the people in these photographs are old, and the statute of limitations has run out, and the governments that wanted to punish them are gone. So it's time for the last truth. There are 47 negatives in this envelope. They document the Western helpers, the people on the free side who risked prosecution to assist escapes, diplomats, aid workers, ordinary citizens. They helped from the West while we built from the East. They deserve to be remembered too. But I need you to promise me something. Before you develop these, contact everyone you can identify. Get their permission. Some may say yes, some may say no. Respect both. Not everyone wants their courage made public, but give them the choice. That's all I ask. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for telling the truth. Thank you for caring when you didn't have to. You gave me the last years of my life. You gave me the chance to stop being a ghost. That's a gift I can never repay. But I tried. These negatives are my final gift to you and to history. Use them well. Katarina. Emma stood in Anna's apartment, holding the envelope, feeling the weight of 47 more stories. She kept her promise, spent 2 years identifying everyone in the final negatives, contacted them, asked permission. 23 said yes, 15 said no, 9 couldn't be reached. Emma respected all of it, developed only the approved images, stored the others in a sealed archive with instructions that they couldn't be opened for 50 years. The 23 photographs that were approved changed everything. They showed American diplomats passing information, Swedish aid workers smuggling supplies, West Berlin citizens who hid escapees in their homes, business owners who employed refugees with no questions asked. They proved the escape network wasn't just East Berliners fleeing. It was people on both sides working together, risking their careers, their freedom, their lives to help strangers cross an artificial border. The final addition to the Katarina Müller collection opened in 2034, 49 years after her supposed execution, 9 years after her actual death. Emma stood in the museum looking at the complete archive. 1,047 photographs total, 217 documented escapes, 41 tunnels, at least 80 more undocumented escapes, dozens of builders, dozens of helpers, hundreds of lives saved, thousands of descendants who existed because their parents or grandparents crawled through tunnels toward freedom. All documented by one woman with a camera who refused to let courage be erased. Emma thought about the journey. From 12 negatives in a book spine to over 1,000 images in a permanent collection. From one photographer's secret to a complete historical archive. And she understood something fundamental. History doesn't preserve itself. It requires people who care, people who search, people who believe truth matters even when it's hidden in shadows and buried under propaganda. Katarina had been one of those people. Now Emma was too. And somewhere, in a used bookshop in Prague, or a library in Vienna, or an attic in Frankfurt, more negatives waited. More stories, more truth, more proof that ordinary people can save each other. Emma would keep looking, keep preserving, keep telling the truth. Because that's what Katarina would have wanted. And because the negatives she left behind deserved to be found. All of them. Have you ever found evidence of hidden history? Something that changed your understanding of the past? Share it in the comments. And if you believe that truth matters enough to preserve, subscribe. These stories need to be told. These people need to be remembered. And courage should never be erased.